Hey Bat fans, Luke here ready to bat chat about another Bat book, and today we're going to take a look at the book Batman Evolution. Batman Evolution collects issues from Detective Comics 743 to 750, I believe. Let me double check just to make sure. I'm pretty sure 743. Yep, 743 to 750. And this is part one of an overarching story called New Gotham. I have this is part one, and then part two is Officer Down, and I do believe New Gotham was recently reprinted and collected into one solid edition that has both Evolution and Officer Down collected together. I do believe so. So Batman Evolution, written by Greg Rucka with a whole bunch of other artists, which the main story, Evolution, written by art by Scott Martinborough, I believe I remember the name right. I have to keep referencing. Yep, Scott Martinborough. And this, when I said it collects issue 743 to 750, this as a whole is not completely Evolution per se. Within it, you have the main Evolution story, which kind of gets broken up into two parts. I'll talk about that in a minute. But in between, there is a one issue, I believe, yes, deals with a story referencing Officer Montoya. And then there's also a two-part story that deals with Commissioner Gordon and the GCPD, and I'll talk a bit about that. And that ends with Evolution proper. And I'll kind of go more in depth in that toward the end. So Evolution, again, I put you in context. Part of New Gotham. This falls right after the story No Man's Land. This kind of deals with the fallout of that. At this point, Gotham has kind of rebuilt, and it centers a lot with this concept of two camps around Gotham called the OGs and the DZs. OGs were original Gothamites, those who stayed during No Man's Land and obviously stayed for the rebuild. Then you have these group of people called the DZs, kind of like the deserters, those who fled Gotham during No Man's Land and then came back. That is something that gets overwritten. Kind of intertwined, yeah, that's the word, throughout this simple book, throughout all those different stories that I kind of mentioned. Evolution, the story with Renee Montoya, which is, I believe, called Happy Birthday to You, the number 2. And then that one, the Gotham Central, very-ish Gotham Central-like story. And again, it kind of intertwines throughout the entire book. Greg Rucka just does a fantastic job in this book, and when he focuses his efforts to kind of tell a really good character-driven type story, he can do that, and then also he can really commit to a very detective-like story, as we've seen this. This is Batman being a detective in this. This is not, Batman like being a supervillain, or not supervillain, jeez, oh man. Superhuman, super strength. This is Batman uses mind, his detective skills to kind of crack the case. And Greg Rucka does a very good job in that, with great dialogue, crisp movement throughout. And the first part of Evolution is like 5 issues, and then it kind of gets wrapped up again. So roughly pretty darn good as far as pacing with the amount of issues given. He does a very good job in this. The art, I'll get into that in a minute. So Evolution, kind of going 4 minutes into this, really haven't touched really what the story is. What Evolution is, you're going to see Ra's al Ghul on the cover, so you're going to lead to believe that this is a very Ra's al Ghul centric story, and while he is kind of like the mastermind behind it all, the main antagonist in the story is this person right here. She looks like a snake. Well, that kind of gets developed in here as well. This is a character named Whisper, and what she's doing, she's kind of like a lieutenant of Ra's al Ghul, not like his daughters, which Talia has a big role play in this toward the end. But she's basically one of Ra's al Ghul's lieutenants with the mission to go into Gotham and to kind of further Ra's, his main mission, what he wants to do. And if you know anything about Ra's al Ghul, Ra's really does kind of play on the global threat and not really afraid of using like eco-terrorism not to further his motives and whatnot. And what this character Whisper does is that she goes in and wants to peddle this this potion throughout Gotham. What it does is it gives the person who drinks it kind of like temporary eternal youth, but it does kind of dissipate if you don't continue to take it. But this main side effect with this potion is that it's laced with, not I don't say if lace is the right word, but it makes the person who drink it kind of adapt some animal DNA. So while Whisper appears like a person in this, at certain points she does kind of show off some of the the side effects of having animal DNA taken in. She'll start to sit there, her scales. She'll start like revealing scales. Actually, you can kind of see it right off the bat. You see right here. This looks like red, like a tattoo or something. This is actually like a cobra on the back of the hood of the cobra, where the scales are starting to pop off, and some of her skin will start to fall off. Batman actually plucks one of her scales off. She actually starts to exhibit these animal characters, and that's what Ra's al Ghul's design in this: peddle this drug through Gotham, and everyone's gonna sit there and start taking it, and then all of a sudden you got mass hysteria. Go back to what I said about the OGs and the DZs. You kind of have that playing out, but again, this is that kind of inner conflict being played out in the story. But again, this is Gotham kind of rebuilt. And now with Gotham sort of rebuilt, just like you had in No Man's Land where the territory was kind of carved out with different factions. Well, ultimately what's happened now is you have these five major elements, crime elements in Gotham, and Greg Rucka does a good job of kind of hashing out, hey, these are the main folks. Abel Crown, he does the Burley Town Massive Gang, and then you have Iken Tzu, who has the Lucky Hand Triad. Then you have Emmanuel Escobedo, has the Colombians. Then you have Vasily Kosev, who has the Russians in the Midtown, and then you have Pascal Jr. Galante, who runs the Mafia. So 5 of these major elements are now sort of carving out Gotham to a degree, but initially they kind of have I'm not going to say they're allies, but they kind of have somewhat of a tolerant relationship. But what Whisper does, she has this person that goes with her to Gotham. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Mr. Abbott. Mr. Abbott here goes in, and then he kind of starts to kill off key members of these rival gangs and makes it look like that they're being committed against the rival gang members. Which Whisper also wants to do is kind of get down to the last 2 gangs remaining, and she wants to use these 2 to kind of peddle out and distribute this drug to Gotham. So they're basically going to be her drug pushers out to the Gotham community, which is also currently on the brink right now. Especially you have the divide between the OGs and the DZs and so forth and so on. And Rucka does a very good job in this, again, playing that internal dispute amongst the gang members, and also how you got the GCPD kind of stuck in the balance here. This is a Commissioner Gordon who recently lost her, excuse me, 1 second. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Recently lost his wife, Sarah, toward the end of No Man's Land, and that was just a tragic story. What the Joker did to her, and so he's kind of still reeling in that. And Batman into play. All the while, Bruce Wayne is still trying to peddle some goodness throughout Gotham, but he is seen by many as being one of those DZs, someone who left Gotham. So you see a lot of internal struggle being played out. and Greg Rucka does a very good job of pushing that throughout. Now, the first part of the story of evolution, it's really kind of broken up into two parts, as I mentioned before. You have the main part of the story, and then the ending, which is put at the very end of this book, but in between you have those other stories I talked about. One of the bad things I'll say about the story is that maybe it's just how this trade could have been put together a little better, because I know how as the issues were published, it's just, hey, just publishing order, how the story had to go. But if they're kind of doing it in this trade, it would have been nice just to have the evolution story kind of wrapped up in one. I mean, in reality, the evolution part, the first part, it ends, but it ends really abruptly and really, I'm not going to say convenient, but we'll say convenient. And then it kind of picks up to the end with the story Dependence, which does a really good job of kind of putting, I don't want to call it the evolution saga, to a proper ending. But it would have been nice to have this in this book, just the whole evolution story, kind of laid out entirely, completely uninterrupted, then kind of have the middle parts of stories put it to the end. So I don't know if that was just something that, if you read like The Black Mirror by Scott Snyder, kind of had those two stories where you had, like the Jock portion of the story, and you had the Francavilla portion of the story. And then if reading it by Signal Issues, kind of had those two types of stories kind of broken up, but then they had the trade. It was kind of put into a nice reading order. It would have been nice to have something nice in this particular book, but overall, it was great if you look at it from that perspective. So the first half of the story ends, it's meh, especially how Whisper goes away with the quotes. But then the end part kind of comes in, and this is where you kind of have more of a Ra's al Ghul-centric part of the story come in, where you have her Whisper kind of come back as someone who's been defeated, and Ra's kind of on giving her like one more crack at taking, Ra's plan into order and take down the Batman. But Talia comes into play, and then what's good with Greg Rucka does with Talia, he just plays in that classic interpretation of Talia, her feelings toward Batman, the beloved, and you see really good development, her kind of torn between the strife between her father and Batman, and it's worked out really nice. Talia does kind of come to Batman's aid toward the end of this, and kind of helps Batman come on top. And I'm not going to really ruin too much of how that kind of gets fleshed out, but I'll just say that Greg Rucka does a really good job of interweaving Talia at the very end of that, and her classic relationship with her and Bruce, and kind of like that struggle she has with her father. That part of the story kind of gives more of a fitting conclusion to the end of Evolution versus the first part, which ended mighty conveniently with someone that kind of took the serum peddled by Whisper and kind of played on the bats and birds and against snakes. It's just, it was very, you're gonna read it and be like, really? So I would say as you're reading this, the first part, just kind of understand you'll get something a little better toward the end. One of the most kind of underrated parts of the story, believe it or not, in this trade anyway, is the two middle stories. The first one, I'm not going to go too far in depth, so I'm going to keep this relatively short. It's a Renee Montoya-centric story. And the good thing about these two middle stories, if you notice, the name of my channel is Gotham Central, and it's an awesome series. Kind of made it really a centric part of really fleshing out, the GCPD, and not really a more Batman-centric story. But if you're ever wondering, kind of, hey, is that a story for me? The good thing about this, Greg Rucka was actually part of, this kind of goes into saying about the cheesy part. Greg Rucka is one of the writers of Gotham Central, along with Ed Brubaker. And you're going to get kind of a good little litmus test of what Gotham Central kind of could be, if you're kind of curious. Because Greg Rucka kind of uses this type of storytelling in here is very similar to what you'll see in Gotham Central. And what basically is this is a really character-centric story with Renee Montoya. This is she's getting ready to testify in court, and it's her birthday. And you see some really strife between her and her co-workers, as well as some of her strife that you'll see with her parents. And then the more you read along in Gotham Central, we kind of get kind of like this struggle that Renee kind of has to fight through. And it's her birthday, and it's awesome. And Two-Face gets kind of put into this story, and you're going to read, you think it's going to be really cheesy, but if you kind of read it, if you understand a little bit about the Renee Montoya character, especially in No Man's Land, this story is really going to hit home for you. And then this next part is the story Urban Renewal. Has 2 parts. This really does kind of really dive deep into the whole OG versus DZ's conflict within Gotham City, and how you basically got the GCPD kind of stuck in between. And it's just great. So if you're wondering if, hey, is Gotham Central for me? If you read Evolution, and you read these kind of 2 middle stories, the one with Renee Montoya, Happy Birthday to You, and the other one, Urban Renewal. And if you enjoy this story, Gotham Central is going to be for you 100%. The art in the middle stories is great. I will kind of caution you on Scott. Brain fart again on his name. Martinborough, yes, Scott Martinborough's art. It's unique, and it basically looks something like this. The body designs, it's gonna take some getting used to. Some of it's kind of bland. You're gonna see Barbara Gordon Oracle in this story a couple times, and you're gonna be confused. Is that Whisper or is that Barbara Gordon? Just to be perfectly honest. And sometime Mr. Abbott and Bruce Wayne, you kind of might get confused a little bit, but it's nice. It's a great color palette. And you get some really fleshed out designs on here, but then you get stuff for just the facial. It's mainly more to me the facial designs, and sometimes the eyes. Just it takes some getting used to, and initially it's going to be really jarring, but it does grow on you a little bit, and then some panels are like, oh, that's really great. Get some good fleshed out things, and then you'll see basic stuff. It kind of comes and goes, but I love the color palette used throughout in Evolution story proper. Kind of like a black, light orange, red, gray type of color palette. Then you get to the end where it's a little bit more of a green color palette with Ra's al Ghul's story, and it's really nice. So the art, it's a mixed bag, but it does take some getting used to. So overall, Batman Evolution. Would I recommend it? First off, score it. I would give this a 4 out of 5. And I'm going to downplay a lot with the art. And I'm not going to criticize too much and how the story flows. If, like I said, if this is one reader to sit there and say, hey, take Evolution together, straight through, finish it out in one sitting, and then kind of put the other stories in at the end, that would kind of bump it up a little bit, but I can't really fault too much this story because it's just fun. This is fun. This is a fun book. Really, if you like the detective aspect, not only Batman, but you get the police work into it, and then No Man's Land, which is a great story. This kind of carries on the follow-out to that, kind of gets you a little bit more finality with No Man's Land and kind of how things kind of flush out to the end. So 4 out of 5. Would I recommend getting it? Originally collected in this trade, $12.95. You're not going to get that these days, so I would say get the new Gotham trade that has both of these stories put together. I'll get to this one sooner or later. Or it's 7 issues. I don't think any of these are kind of like these expensive single issue prices you're going to see, so you're probably able to get single issue versions of this relatively easy in your local comic shop or online, whatever the case may be. So either way, I don't know if I'd recommend. This is going to be a little expensive trying to get this individual trade. Then obviously Officer Down. So I would rather say, hey, get New Gotham, the new trade, collect it, or get the single issues. But either way, highly recommend it. This is fun. I would say don't let the art kind of discourage you. That'd be the only thing that's going to maybe cause some people some pause in this. It's a great story. Great story, great fun. And just enjoy it because it's a great Batman story, detective-centric story. Not only the Batman, the GCPD. Great character development, great plotting by a great writer, Greg Rucka in his prime. And just a fun story. So, anyway, hit me up in the comments below if you read this book. We'll bat chat about it and go from there. And next video, don't know yet, but I got a couple ideas and hopefully get one out here relatively soon. So, until then, take care.